Hello, everybody. My name is Wilton Reisenhover, and I am going to be your host today to talk about stock screening on Fintel. So just real quickly, I see that there's some people on here. I always try to make sure that people can hear me. So if you can hear me, please post a message in the chat so that I know that we're good. Okay, great. I see somebody already. Fantastic. So we have an hour scheduled. It probably won't take that long, but I'll just keep trying to show you guys functionality that we have as best I can. So if you're new to the stock screener, let me know, please. And if you've been using our screener for a while, also let me know. And the reason I'm asking you that is because we're basically launching a new version of this. Okay, so the first version of this is long gone, or the first version of our stock screener is long gone. And the one that you've been using, if you've been using our stock screener for a while now, you've been using the advanced stock screener. That's actually the version 2.0. And we've marked it as such now. And the third version of this stock screener is called the Workbench. And I'm going to talk to you really pretty much about that today. We're going to shut down the old one of these days. Well, obviously we'll leave it running, and we're going to move everybody to the Workbench, which is extremely much more powerful than the old one. And it's got a bunch of great features that I think you'll like. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen share. Great. I see some new people, and I see some people that have been here for a while. So let's go ahead and start with the screen share. And also, are you new to? If you could tell me if you're new to screening completely, or if you've used other screeners, that might be helpful. Or if you're kind of new to investing, that would be helpful. Okay. So what you see here is my Fintel dashboard. And as I always try to say this, don't take any kind of, existence of a ticker in my dashboard as being a recommendation or a non-recommendation. I just follow a bunch of stuff. I don't always invest in any of these, but I do try to keep track of stocks. And so you're going to see a bunch of stuff in here. And this stuff changed all the time. I wouldn't read too much into this. So if you want to get to the stock screener, presumably you've become a member, or you're going to become a member. You're going to go from your dashboard, you're going to go over here to the screens. And this advanced screener is the old one. Okay, it's the one that most people have been using to date. The Workbench is the one that we're going to talk about today. This is our new screener, and it's got a bunch of awesome features that I don't think you'll find anywhere else, possibly in the world, or maybe you'll find them in some really expensive tools, but you're not going to find them anywhere that's accessible like Fintel is. And so there's a guide here. It's a quick start guide, and there's a lot in here. Okay, there's a whole lot of stuff in here. So but you can hide it, and you can unhide it. Okay, and there's also a list of screener terms. So if you come down here to the screener terms, you're going to click on this, and it's going to open up a new window here. I'm going to admit this is complicated, but I'm going to try to break it down so in a very simple way, so that you can understand what's going on here, and then kind of build from there. Now, this is basically a query language. If you've ever used like SQL, you've maybe heard of SQL, SQL query language, or other types of query languages. This is really kind of a financial query language that we developed here. And like I said, the basic terms are here, the basic ideas are here, but I'm going to walk you through some examples here, and we'll and you'll be able to see kind of like perhaps the examples will be great. So I'm going to hide this here first, and I'm going to start with a clean slate. I'm going to delete this. So obviously you can put comments in here, whatever. If you're an engineer, you know how that works. But at a very, very basic level, you can do stuff like this. You're going to say price. You're going to pick a term, a financial term. You're going to say, give me all of the companies in the database, in the market, that have a price of greater than 1. Let's start off with the very basic stuff here. Okay, so I'm going to click on get results, and it's going to chug away here. And here comes the list. So we have about 32,000 securities in our US database. We have coverage of the world now. And so we have coverage of Canada, and the UK, or Great Britain, as we say. We have Mexico, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, a whole bunch of markets. Now, some of the kind of frontier markets we might not have as good a coverage on, and if you have questions about that, you can ask me. But if I want to say, country equals Canada, I just go in here and I say country equals Canada. I can say, okay, then let's get Canadian stocks. So we have 5,700 here. I can say, get me, and of course, this is going to be denominated in Canadian dollars, not US dollars, right? We switch currencies when this happens. I can say country equals Great Britain, okay? And now I have 10,000 securities. And that's kind of how that works at a very basic level, okay? So I can stack queries. Price is greater than 1, price is greater than 1, price is less than 10. Since this is in, and also in Great Britain, keep in mind, I think that they denominate their prices in pence, right? Great Britain, pence. I'm not sure. So, okay, so now you kind of get a sense of this. I can also say things like market cap is greater than 100 million. I can use M's for millions, or I can say 100 million and market cap is less than a billion. Let's go back to the US here because I'm familiar with US dollars. Okay, now the thing to keep in mind here is that price is greater than 1 and price is less than 10. This is an and. Every line here must evaluate to a true in order for the stock to be passed through the filter, or passed through the query. So for example, if the country is not US, and it's not going to come through. If the price is not greater than 1, it's not going to come through. If the price is not less than 10, it's not going to come through. And then we have this here, okay? So this here and this here are equivalent, okay? Somebody raise their hand. Put your question in the chat, and I'll answer it there. So did you get that? So this and this are equivalent, okay? Every line here is a strict and. If I wanted to say or, I could say market cap is greater than 100 million or market cap is less than 1 billion. This is going to obviously generate the entire list. This is basically a null result, but I'll go ahead and do it here anyway, just so you can see that it works. Okay. So let's keep going. I can say, since I'm in the exchange and in the US, a lot of people don't like to see OTC stocks. Okay. Now the old screener, you had to put up parentheses around this because it was treated as a string, but exchanges are first class objects in America. I'm sorry, in the workbench. And I'm going to say get results here. And I can see that there are no OTC stocks in these results. Okay. I saw a hand, but I don't see that hand anymore. Like I said, if you have a question, put it in the chat and I will answer it as I can. Okay, so let's keep going here. I think you understand kind of the basics, or I hope you understand at least the basics of creating these queries, right? We put a line here, we put a semicolon at the end of it. We can actually, I think, even span lines here. This should work as well. So it doesn't have to be on the line, it just has to be denominated by, or at least it has to be terminated by with a semicolon. This will not work. This will give us an error. Okay. Good. I think that's probably, I've hashed that enough. So let's come on down here and let's click on the results here. We said, okay. So now we get into something really interesting, right? All we've done so far is we've done simple expressions here where we've said, let's put a term on the left and a number on the right, or let's put a number on, okay. And if you were going to go out and compare this stock screener with any other stock screener on the internet, you would probably say this is not all that interesting because it just does the same thing that everything else does, except with a complicated query interface. But what if you wanted to start looking at accounting data and you wanted to start looking at some interesting things around that? What if I said, I want to find companies that are consistent with Benjamin Graham's net current asset value formula. And he said, let's take the current assets current. And if you cannot remember all of these, then I think Control Space on a Mac will give you autocomplete. I just hit Control Space. Assets current minus liabilities. Liabilities is greater than the market cap times 0.66%. So Benjamin Graham back in the 50s, and I think even Warren Buffett subscribed to this way back then, said, look, there's a lot of companies around here where if you took all the current assets and you subtracted the liabilities, you would actually find that the value was actually more than the current market cap. In other words, you could take the company, you could buy it for what the market was valuing it, and you could liquidate the whole thing and you would still make a profit. So this is an interesting query. Let's just see, for example, if there are any companies that where that kind of still holds today. And he had this 0.66 as a margin of error, because he would say, well, maybe sometimes all the current assets can't be liquidated for full value. So we would take a percentage of that. So it turns out that we're actually getting some companies here where if you took the current assets and you subtracted the liabilities, you'd actually get better than the market cap. Now, there's a couple idiosyncratic numbers here where we're getting some zeros in. And just to be clear, you know, this is version 3.0. In addition to creating this new functionality, we also license the Capital IQ data set. And so I'm still going through and we're still auditing data and making sure that everything's clear. But you're going to find, if you know, a little bit of inconsistency here. Here's a company where market cap is 0. So I gotta go look up these things. But generally speaking, I'm comfortable with the data that's coming back from this. So here's a bunch of companies here where this actually holds true. Okay, questions so far? No questions so far. Okay. Oh, here we go. How do I find stocks with a particular daily EMA cross, i.e. 4E? Okay, so hold on to that question. We're going to get to technical analysis here in a second. I want to show you the financial analysis stuff first. So in addition to this, you can say revenue growth is greater than 5% or at least 0. Let's just say 0. There's a whole bunch of terms in here that have to do with accounting data. You've got cash flow statements, you've got income statements, you've got balance sheet statements. Probably there are going to be very few of these companies where the revenue growth is actually this high and the balance sheet stuff works out. But here we go. Okay. All right. So let's look at some more of these terms here. We did examples of the expressions. We did countries. We did Boolean expressions here. I can put question marks around these. We talked about comments. Obviously, I can use parentheses as well. Let's say I wanted to find companies, hang on a second, where the revenue growth is greater than 15%. Let's do this in Canada. So there's fewer companies there. All right. Okay. Let's hit cancel here. Okay, here we go. So I can also take this, for example, and I can say order revenue growth. And if I get my results here, now it's going to take a little bit longer because, let's see, order by revenue growth. I'm not sure what's. So what it's doing here is it's collecting all of the results of this screen, kind of on the back end before showing them to me, and then it's going to order them by revenue growth, and then provide me with the results. Okay, so what we see here is the results revenue growth is greater than 15%, and it's coming back ordered the way I asked. Okay. People sometimes have questions about how to order these things. I could also say, let's dial this back a little bit. I can say limit 10. You can also say order by revenue growth descending. So I want to find the top 10 stocks in Canada with the highest revenue growth. It's greater than 5%, and then sort it and then give me the top 10. So look at this. So there's a lot of uses for situations where you want to find the top 10 of something or the top 20 of something rather than an entire set. And this is a perfect example of how you could take a kind of a filter and then order the results and then select the top 10 or so as necessary. So let me kind of jump through here and look at some of these questions here. Questions about what I've done so far. Does this get you excited? Does this not get you excited? And then let me start looking at the questions here. So the question was about EMAs. Okay, so let's talk about functions. We do have functions here. Here's some basic math functions that we have. I can't speak to all of these, but I'm not sure why you would use a tangent in a screener, but you have it here. But some of the functions that are interesting are some of the technical analysis functions. Now, there's a library called TA for J. Now, if you're a programmer or you're inclined to be able to read library documentation, you can open this up and you can look in here and you can find the documentation for all of the various indicators that we have, because we have implemented all of these indicators. I think they're available in here somewhere in the Java doc. So here's all these indicators here. Okay, there's a whole bunch of these. Now let's just talk about EMA. What we've done here, as we said, let's take a look at this one right here. The current price. Let's take so what this is going to do is it's going to say, let's find all the companies where the current price is greater than the 20-day EMA. So if I say get results here, this is getting the results. Okay. Now, there was a question here. The question is, can I get a query for fetching companies with consistent revenue growth over the last few quarters? So that would be the revenue growth over 5%. This is basically uses trailing 12 months. Okay. If you have an income term or a cash flow term and you put growth on the end, it's basically trailing 12 months revenue growth. So I'm still talking about, John, I see you're raising your hand. Just put your comment, your question in the chat rather than raising the hand. You don't need to raise your hand. Just put the question in the chat. So this question was, how do you find stocks with a particular daily EMA cross, i.e. 4 EMA across a 16 EMA? So the idea is this, EMA, I think this works. The technical analysis functions I'm not as familiar with, but I don't know if you want a 4-day or a 4-month, but either way you can do this. It's greater than EMA 16. Okay. Now, this syntax is pretty tough, I understand. So I'm not sure what I've done here. Let's just come back here. Oh, here's how our engineer told us to do this. Okay. So you got to have there. Let's see if this works. So here's a 50-day or 20-day cross. Okay. This is going to tell you all the ones that are currently over it, but it's not going to tell you the ones that just crossed. If you wanted to do that, I think you would do something like this. 51 day, 19 days. So this is basically saying, let's see if that works. Because Does this make sense? Is this helpful? Okay. Now we're still working on a lot of the syntax here, and I'm not sure that we're convinced that this is the final approach to this, but this is what we kind of came up with right now. And the reason is because we wanted to be able to provide a means of doing like date stamping anything. So for example, if I come over here, if you look at these timestamps, we have kind of general purpose timestamps of 5 days, 2 weeks, 6 months, or 1 year. This will show you a companies where the current revenue growth is greater than the revenue growth from a year ago. Okay. And this kind of bracket 1 year kind of syntax is kind of how we decided to approach kind of timestamps and years. And so you could come in here and say, you know, a lot of people, whenever they talk about technical analysis, talk about they're using days and so forth. You could actually say an EMA of 20 days is an EMA 20 is typically 20 periods in a trading month. You could actually say 1 month instead, or 3 months and 1 month. Okay, which is more calendar dates oriented rather than kind of trading days. Okay, and I feel like being able to specify an actual time period is a little bit more intuitive, and I could be wrong, but I feel like that's the case. And so I'm trying to, you know, we wanted to try to build this syntax in a way that's more intuitive, and it kind of corresponds a little bit more to actual periods and so forth. So I hope that's helpful. Is SMA for simple moving average? Yes. SMA is simple moving average. EMA is exponential moving average. Okay. And then SMA is here. And I'm just trying to think of a couple other ways to do this. There's a whole bunch of indicators in here as well. You cannot save your screens in the workbench yet. Yes, that's true. You know what? We'll work on that. What we don't have in the old screener, what you could do is you could save your screen, and when you save your screen, we'll basically run it every day. Sometimes we run it a couple times a day, and we haven't built yet the processes in the back end to automatically run this kind of workbench stuff yet. And so that's why you can't save a screen yet. So I would say probably within a week or two. Okay, I'll just kind of go out on a limb and say a week or two for being able to save your screen. I hope that helpful. The other thing you can do, and I haven't mentioned this yet, but you can say this: price is greater than 1, and market cap is greater than 100 million. And then we have this idea of being able to just put a kind of a pass-through term here. Now, I will be honest and tell you that it does not work the way we expect it to work right now. And we're in the process of fixing that. But what this is supposed to do is it's supposed to say price, market cap, and then just add volume to the results as kind of like a pass-through term. Like it's not going to filter on that. But what it's actually doing is it's actually treating this as kind of the only term. It's removing market cap. But whenever we get that kind of issue straightened out here, what will happen is it will put you know, the results in the grid as kind of a pass-through entity, but it's not doing that right now. I should have said this is what I wanted to do. So, okay, and it's also kind of it's also filtering on these as well. So we're going to do a little bit of work on that, but I think whenever we're finished with this, it's going to be pretty awesome. Yeah. So you got to get so this is ultimately these are going to become pass-through terms, and they're not going to filter on this. Okay. Okay, let me go back through. How can I scan a price that has touched the upper Bollinger Band on a daily? You know, I don't know the answer to that. I know that we can. If I say Bollinger Band's upper indicator, we need to figure out, what I need to do is I need to figure out what function that is. This Bollinger Band's upper indicator, which is in the TA for J, should correspond to a function in here somewhere, but I don't know what it is yet. And I'm going to have to go back and figure out what that is. And we'll have to publish it somewhere because I don't think we actually have all the functions published yet. So I will do an investigation on that and see what we can figure out. Okay, but we should be able to do all of these things in this screener. I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question better. All right, I'm going to go back through this chat here and see what we have. It says SMA for simple moving average. I answered the consistent revenue growth over the last few quarters, I think. Would be great to have an example queries also combined with the guidance on the investment guidelines they adhere to. Okay, so what I'm doing here is for that is I'm trying to provide examples over here. If you click on screens and you go down here to this bottom list, these are all screens that I created with the 2.0 screener. And what they are kind of show you various examples of how to do stuff. And like, here's a dividend yield screener. And so I'm going to try to build this out a little bit further and show like investing strategies. So if you're a dividend investor, then this is kind of how you would get started. And it will show you, it actually shows you the rules in there. So you could click on dividend yield. You can actually see the rules here. If I took this and I come back over here to my screen here, I can actually say dividend yield is greater than 4. And it's going to generate that rule. So the idea here is I'm trying to provide screens that correspond to people's strategies. Let's just go to Hong Kong for a second. And see what this has to have. See what this says. So yeah, so I'm getting dividend yields in Hong Kong as well, which is good. A couple strange companies here, but I'll work these out as we get further along. Is there a way to add the date to the results? I don't know what that means. Is there a way to add the date to the results? Maybe whoever asked that can explain. How can we detect a short squeeze that's just starting to go up? So, the question you're asking here is really kind of, what is the short squeeze explorer, right? So here's the short squeeze leaderboard in the, for the US. And this is our current, list of best short squeeze candidates right now. So, I mean, this is kind of the answer to your question is really, we spent a lot of time on this. This is really kind of the best way I can tell you is to find out about short squeezes, which is to go to this short squeeze screener and leaderboard. And when an uptrend from a short squeeze has been exhausted, well, there's no way to tell that really, right? You're talking about, trying to predict the future here. And it's not really easy to tell when a company is going to stop going up and start going down. So I don't really know how to answer that. All we can do, we can't tell you where you're going to be. All we can do is tell you where you are right now, right? So this short squeeze explorer, tells you where you are right now. The company has a high short interest afloat. It's had a lot of increase in volume. It's got a lot of increase in price. The borrow free rate is extraordinary. And so it is, of all the companies that we have in our database, it is the most likely to short squeeze, right? That's kind of all we can tell you. We can't tell you that it's going to definitely short squeeze. We can't tell you that if it short squeeze is going to go this far. We can tell you that right now, of all the companies that we have in this market, this is the one that's most likely based on the information that we have. So I hope that answers your question. So the question is, can you add a previous rank? Yeah, maybe. We'll look into that. We were looking at things like putting in how long it's been on the rankings and stuff like that. But I think it's not unreasonable to ask. So the question would be here, timestamp the results. Are you talking about the results in here? I'm not sure what that would tell you. Like what times, like this, the results here are basically the as of right now, right? So the question is, can we put a timestamp in the results? And I'm not sure what that timestamp would be of, because there's results that, well, okay. So you're talking about in a save screen, perhaps the results, because this is basically, the timestamp is right now, right? There's no, I mean, it's basically as of right now. So I don't know how you would timestamp this. But if you're talking about a save screen where we're looking at, old stuff, then, we have the run results here. Maybe we can talk about this offline. I'm not sure I understand fully what the question is here. And we're certainly wanting to help out, but I don't know like what that would mean, putting a timestamp in the results here. Okay, so all right. So any other questions then? It's 11:30. And like I said, I've talked about the fact that you can, let's look at some of the screener terms. Okay. Do we have data related to hedge fund buying activity? Yeah, we do. Let's look at some of the terms here. Now, this is something that we're working on. So like I said, we license Capital IQ data. So for all the data that's licensed from Capital IQ, we're going to show you what their kind of description is. They have a plugin that allows you to use Capital IQ data in their Excel. We don't provide that, so you can't get an Excel formula out of here. But these formula numbers are widely well known, and so we put them here so that you understand like what this means, what this is compared to the Capital IQ data. If you use their tool, if you're familiar with their data. Okay, so some of the stuff that we so accounts payable growth is just the 1 year growth over accounts payable. If there's a growth term on the end, it's just this term, but the change in 1 year. Okay, I don't have descriptions for all of those. Okay, so accounts payable growth, we look at the current accounts payable, we look at the accounts payable a year ago, and we provide you with the percent change. Okay, it's that simple. Accounts payable per share, we take the accounts payable, we divide it by the total common shares outstanding to get the accounts payable per share. All right. And likewise with all of these other balance sheet numbers. Okay. Can we get authorized shares? I don't know. I'll take a look at that. Put your requests in a ticket, and I'll track them down. So again, a lot of these things are just balance sheet items. I'm going to keep going down here. The question was about ownership data, hedge fund buying activity. So if you come down here to this area called owners, all of the ownership data has got a prefix of owners. Okay. And I'm just doing a search for owners on this page. And here's all the owners data here. So owners allocation change is basically the percent change from one quarter to the next in the average fund allocation in the security. So this kind of goes back to our owner's score. If I go take a look at, let's just take a look at a company here. SOUS. I'll pick on AMC because AMC, everybody loves AMC. If you look at AMC, we have this ownership accumulation score. We actually look at, here's another example here. We look at the allocation. Every fund allocates a certain percentage of their assets under management to a stock. And we look at the average allocation in the funds in the prior quarter. And we look at the average allocation in the funds in this quarter. And we figure out what that change is. And so in this case, the average allocation, the current allocation was 0.33%. The change was 0.23%, and the percent change was 6,000%. So it was a very big increase. Okay. And likewise, we look at the prior owners and the current owners, and we look at the change in owners count. So you can actually take these numbers, this data, which is really quite informative if you're interested in hedge fund buying activity. And you can actually take this information and put it into the stock screener. owner's allocation percent change is right there. And I can come over here and I can say owner's allocation percent change is greater than 0. I'm going to find all the companies where the existing fund, any existing fund, the average of the change is greater than 0. So these are all funds that have had some kind of increase in allocation. I'm sorry, these are all stocks that have had some kind of increase in allocation from one quarter to another. I hope that answers your question, Preet. There's also owner's count change. So if I go back here to owner's count change, owner's count percent change, I believe to be is a very significant factor in identifying companies that are being accumulated, because if they're out there convincing, if you had 20 owners, institutional owners, and now you've got 200, that's significant. It's not just one fund could get it wrong, but if you've got 50 funds that are piling in, then that's significant. And so I always try to look at what are more than one kind of entity doing. And it's the same with the insiders, right? We have insider data as well. Let me come back down here. We talked about owners. So we've got ownership score. Ownership score is basically this thing, and I won't go into it right now because it's just, you can read all about it right here. But we also have insider data. Let's go back to the insiders. So we have all this insider data here that I don't think you're going to find in a lot of other places. I can find, officers. I can find out what the average purchase price is of the officers. I can compare that to the current purchase price. I can say what is the officer buyer count. So how many officers have bought in the last quarter or so. So let's see what we have here. So here's a situation where all the officers have bought, at least one officer has bought some shares. Okay, and here's one where 5 have bought. All right. Questions so far? There's also this thing what we can do that I don't think we've documented, but if you guys are familiar with kind of like factor investing, the idea is this: you take a factor, like a quality factor or a value factor, okay, and you want to combine them into something that's interesting, and you want to be able to sort them, okay? And this is kind of something that we've been working towards for a very long time. We don't have any analyst rating changes data yet. I'm sorry. You can compare volume. So volume right now is greater than volume 3 months ago. I think that should work. Some of these questions I don't necessarily, like, I've never done before. I know that we have average volume. Let's see what we have here for volume. Like, let's see, insider buyer volume. Volume average 1 month. Okay. So look, I want to go on a limb here. I'm going to say we take the current volume average 1 month and we compare it to the volume average 1 month 3 months ago. Okay. I have no idea if this will work, but we'll give it a shot. We don't have any option data yet. Sorry. Those are 2 data sets that we have to add. As I mentioned, we just licensed the Capital IQ data, and it's going to keep us busy for a while. But can you see which insiders have a position using the screener? No, we don't have that level of detail. The screener only returns back stock lists. Okay, so there's no way in the screener. Yes, let me finish my first thought. There's no way in the screener to return anything back but stocks. So you can say things like, find me insiders, you know, where the insider buyer account, insider net buyer account is greater than 5. Okay. And then the question is, does the query support or conditions? The answer is yes, the queries support or conditions. I could go dig into here. I'd have to open that tab and then actually go look at the insiders and see who the insiders were buying. And then here they are right here. Here's August 18th, August 5th. You can see Frank and so forth. And then you can see that their current performance of those trades is actually pretty good, right? So Frank bought 200 shares on 8/18 for $34, and it's been 20 days since then, or that trade that the share price went up 4% since then. So the question is, are the queries similar to Java code statements? I mean, they're only similar in that I guess the answer is kind of yes, right? So like all we're talking about here are expressions. Okay, expressions are, you know, just part of an overall language. We don't have really any statements in here. But you know, we actually do have a statement, but you know, the expression syntax is basically similar to what you are going to find in JavaScript, in Java, and in SQL. So we've tried to stay consistent with that. Okay, in order to be familiar and to be you know, kind of like make it an easy leap from something that you might know already. And I think even Python perhaps has some similar expression syntax. But this is not this. If you've done any kind of query language before, have worked with any kind of expressions, this should not be strange to you. There are certain things that we've done that might be strange, especially around the time series, the dates, where we're using, you know, calendar mnemonics rather than having you specify, you know, 20 days or whatever, because we wanted to be this a little bit more flexible than like typically in Python, you'd have to load the time series yourself and then kind of like deal with all that. And we're kind of doing that for you. You know, that's the idea. So this is kind of what you would call syntactic sugar, being able to say, you know, 5 weeks or whatever, volume average 1 month is greater than volume average 1 month 1 month ago. Okay, that's the idea here. So if I hit control, if I hit get results, there's one other thing I wanted to mention here, and I got a little bit of time left here. We do have the ability to specify a function. Okay, and this I was talking a little bit about. Starting to talk about factor investing. In factor investing, you're going to identify a factor like momentum factor or value factor or quality factor or volatility factor. And we're going to start rolling out some of those things. We've already done that to a bit. For example, anything in here that ends with score is basically a number that ranges from 0 to 100. So in all practical purposes, it's a factor. So we've got an insider officer score, we've got an insider score, and we've got a dividend score. Okay, we've got a short squeeze score, short squeeze Canada, Australia. We've got okay. So let's say I wanted to go about and create a score is greater than 50. Let's just talk. Okay, and ownership score is greater than 50. Okay, let's say I wanted to find companies that had a lot of dividend and had a lot of ownership accumulation, institutional accumulation. Okay, I could do this. Okay, And this is going to give me a bunch of results. So I've got 60s here, I got 67s here. But what if I wanted to find the top 20 of these? Like, how would I go about finding kind of all the companies in the world, or all the companies in the United States, the top X of these? Okay. Would I say order by dividend score, descending, limit 50? Well, that's interesting, but it's not going to get me, the companies that have a high ownership score, right? So the issue here is that there needs to be some way to combine these scores into a way that's a unified kind of view. This tells me the ones that have the top dividend score, but doesn't tell me the ones that have the top ownership score. It could be that, well, one with a high dividend score doesn't have a very good ownership score. So how do I do that? So this is where it gets kind of magical, right? So let's say let X, excuse me, equals the dividend score plus the ownership score. So we're going to take, okay, we're going to divide this by 2. So we're going to average the ownership score and the dividend score, and then say order by, let's just take a look at this without the order, okay? And let's say, let's let my score, okay, equals this. Is there a way to exclude worse? The answer is no. It's a good question. I do appreciate that we should be able to pick security types, but we don't have that right now. So what this is supposed to be doing is it's supposed to be showing my score, but let's just say my score is greater than 50. Let's see what this says here. Okay, so now we're seeing my score here. So my score is the average of the ownership score and the dividend score. And I should be able to say now, order by my score, limit 50. Okay. And what this is going to do is it's going to generate a combined score that combines the dividend and ownership. And it's going to select those that have that rank that most highly, and then order it in kind of from high to low and pick the top 50. So if you are familiar with factor investing, this is actually how I personally go about looking at stocks. Is I actually look at, I always try to find the leaders of a factor. So, it's fun to find out companies that have a dividend score of this or a dividend yield of that or this or that or the other, but what if you could find the best of the entire market? And that's really what this is designed to do. Is it's designed to provide you a way to find the best of something, okay, by combining metrics and scores into your own kind of novel approaches, and then ordering them, and then displaying them. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but this should provide me with some results. So I've actually never done this before. It's a new feature that we just launched. So if it doesn't work, I'll take a look at this. We'll get it working. But you guys get the idea here. Query for sector specific stocks, please. Okay, good question. We will work on that. I think we actually have SIC codes in here. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. We definitely have SIC codes for the U.S. listed stocks. We do not have industry data for non-U.S. listed stocks yet, although we will be in the process of licensing CapIQ GICS data once we've got the current Capital IQ data digested, which will be probably another month or two, maybe even a quarter. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, it's 11:50. After you add the owner count percent change, how do you dive in for long short position based on those owners? You would basically, I don't know the answer to that. I think you would start with the screener, and then you have to go look at each company individually to see kind of like what the overall net short. Let me just see here. If I go to Fintel and I say SONV Tesla, SONV tells you the net value. You can actually see the net long short positions here. So Vanguard has a 40 billion net long position here, but I can turn this around and I can sort it backwards, and I can see that Jane Street Group actually has a net short position of $10 billion. And that includes a $24 billion put position, a $13 billion call, and then $544 million worth of equity. So I think that's kind of how you'd have to do it. You'd have to look at start with the screen and then go through this data here and figure out kind of, what the overall positions look like. I'll think about how to do this a little bit better, perhaps in the future. So, okay, why don't you put a ticket in for that net long short value, and I'll see what I can do. It would have to be something like the average, because we're not pulling out specific stocks. We're not pulling out specific funds, and that we're pulling out kind of aggregate data. So the question is, how recent are these data? Well, we get data every day, right? So the question is what is the reporting requirements for any specific kinds of data? So ticker data, we get pricing data every day. We get end of day prices. The borrow fee rates for the short interest, we get 10 every 30 minutes. We get updated fund positions on a monthly basis. We get 13Fs on a quarterly basis. So the question you're asking there is how recent is the data is really kind of a complex question, because every data source that we have has its different reporting requirements and different reporting tempos. We get Form 4s every day, and they're 2 days lagged, but the 13Fs are lagged 45 days, and 13Ds are within 10 days. 13Gs are sometimes annual. So, it's a complex question, but we're trying to be as fast as we can. We literally ping the SEC website every 60 seconds. So, you're not going to find you're going to be hard pressed to find a company that doesn't work harder to get you timely data in a right way. We get data from Capital IQ twice a day, but I know that because of the review process there, I mean, if a company goes out and says we're going to do a reverse merger or here's something, here's an 8K that says here's a new EPS score. Well, it sometimes takes them, I don't know how long, but there's going to be a small lag, a day or two for that data to circulate through their systems and processes and be checked and then make its way to us. But we get data from them twice a day in that regards. So, and we're always trying to find stuff fast. Okay. So that's kind of really all I have to say. I mean, it's been 55 minutes. You guys have some great questions. Really, really excited about the questions. The short squeeze score and the insider score. Yeah. So I'll tell you the short squeeze score, and then we'll call it a day. So all of the metrics that we have, all of these scoring models that we have are really, the rules are posted on each. I think so. All of the scoring models that we have use basically the same kinds of methodology that is being used by quant developers around the world. Okay. And it's really quite simple. We take the metrics that we want to use that we believe to be indicative or predictive of the factor that we're looking at. So let's take a look at the funds flow, because it's only got two factors here. Okay. We got allocation change and we got allocation change. No, I'm sorry. These are not the two factors in the funds flow leaderboard. The two factors are the owner's count, and I need to make this a little bit more clear. The owner's count change and the allocation change. So we calculate the base number here, owner's count, prior owner's count, and the owner's count. And then we figure out what that change is. It's 250%. Okay. We also calculate the change in allocation. So this is our second factor here. Then what we do is we force rank these across the entire market. So in the case of owner's count, in our ownership database, and none of this stuff is displayed for you. Actually, there is some rankings around here. I'm not going to get too far sidetracked, but what we do here is we rank these from 1 to, in the case of ownership data, we've got probably 75,000 companies, equities in our database. And when we put a percentile rank on this, so this guy, I don't know what his percentile rank, but he's 463%, and I just sorted it by percent. So this, let's assume, just for the sake of for the purpose of this discussion, this guy is number 1 out of the total population. The percentile rank would be 99.99. But the allocation change is actually pretty low. So this allocation change, I mean, it's not pretty low, it's 43%. This percentile rank might be, 30%. Well, if you took the 99% and the 33% and you averaged them, the percentiles, then you're going to get the ownership score. So that kind of is consistent. This ownership score of 97% is kind of consistent with the idea of this one being really high and this one being maybe it's 75%. So the question then, your question was, how do you calculate the scores? They're all calculated the same way. We take the factors that we think are important. In the case of the short squeeze score, it's 4 factors. In the case of the ownership accumulation score, it's 2 factors. In the case of the insiders, I think it's 2 or 3 factors. There's an officer score, which I think is 2 factors. We force rank the metrics. We get the percentile rank, and then we average the percentile ranks across the metrics. And that gives you a number from 0 to 100. Okay. So that's all I have to say about that. I hope that was helpful. The rules are posted on each, right? I'm not sure what that question means, but I'm going to go ahead and close it up for now. I want to thank you guys. You've had some great questions. This is the first time I've actually been able to talk about the workbench in public. And so I'm very excited that I was able to have this time here with you guys and tell you about this new feature that we've got. And I hope you guys love it. And I hope to hear from you guys on YouTube. I'm going to post this on YouTube here in a few minutes. And maybe we'll see you guys. If you have questions, you can put a ticket in, and one of our customer service people will help you with that. And if not, like I said, I do this every month at the same time. And I will announce all new features here. Hope to see you guys again. Thanks so much. And I will talk to you again soon.